Disruptive FM, the podcast that talks business in the era of the startup economy. The show Fox Business Network, CNBC, or Bloomberg wouldn't dare to replicate. We talk digital trends, social media technology, disruptive innovation, and digital transformation. Broadcasting from Seattle on the worldwide mobile web. Listen to us weekly. Download the Spreaker application today at the App Store or on Google Play. And follow us on Twitter at Disruptive FM.
You give us 22 minutes weekly. We give you the tech business world. Disruptive FM. I'm your host, Jeff Colon. Find me on Twitter at Disruptive FM or at DJGEOFFE. We're back with another great episode, talking all things tech. F8 did Facebook talk about at their grand event last week. A lot of great new announcements that might actually put social media communications on its head. Ultra Music Festival in Miami. Is the festival and winter music conference at a point where it is 100% dated? The death of Meerkat was alive at South by Southwest and is now dead. How did something here today go by today? The announcement of Tidal, the new audio streaming service from Jay-Z, and why it is destined for failure. And finally, all the wonderful brand innovators, content marketing dates in which I will be at and discussing disruptive content marketing, discipline results, all that and more on this episode of Disruptive FM. So it has been a busy March. And if you think about why it's been so busy, there's been a lot of really great events out there. One of the bigger events that we actually saw was the F8 Developers Conference in San Francisco, hosted by Facebook. They had made this pretty much a unique event, a unique annual event. And they had really tried to, I think, tie in really well with many developers for a long period of time. And it looks like they wanted to get back on track because they, as we all know, in the tech business world, it's not a matter of just making sure that you appease users, customers of your technology, but also making sure that you appease the developers, because unless they are going to actually develop on your platform and create new innovations and new products, you're going to be running into a lot of bigger issues, so to speak. So a 2-day event in San Francisco. Some of the great things that they mentioned, obviously, is how they were going to allow more developers to tap into the Facebook Messenger app. We knew they were moving this way. It was only a matter of time. A lot of different social customer relationship management angles that can be developed and built here with that announcement. One of the big things that I think that will be actually having to pay quite a bit of attention to is the retargeting capabilities of the Messenger app. And what we mean by that is, if someone is visiting your site to take a particular action and they don't fulfill that entire action, will there be a way to actually messenger to that particular individual if they're logged into Facebook through the Messenger app? In some respects, it's actually sort of creepy, but I think if it could actually be very unique and interesting as well. From a user standpoint. Those will be a lot of interesting things that we'll have to watch over the next couple of months based on how they release all of this. Right now, there is no way to tap into the Messenger app, so to speak. because of the fact that there is it's just basically available to message to other people on a day-to-day basis. So we'll have to continue to watch how that unfolds. And of course, a lot of other information in terms of how they're going to be using video and what that means over a period of time. Because there are questions in terms of what their sort of value is in video, how it's going to differentiate itself from sort of the other players that are out there. I think the biggest thing that was not answered is how are people going to discover video beyond the news feed? We know we live in a world where we want to see immediacy. We want to see things in real time. But how if you're not logged in and you miss it? There needs to be some sort of archival process, search process that allows you to figure out where these videos and the content lives so you can find it beyond the news feed. And that wasn't necessarily answered. But a lot of interesting things. Definitely, and we've talked a lot about this on the show, and you can definitely listen to a lot of the archives. We've looked at it in the sense that they are sort of in the pilot's seat right now on probably the quickest jet, and are moving at a rapid pace toward really redefining the usage of social networking technology. I think one other thing that I'll actually note that was interesting is how they perceive the integration of virtual reality into their network. And not a lot of marketers talked about this, and it's unfortunate. But I think one thing that we'll have to think a little bit more in terms of marketing isn't just necessarily the Internet of Things, which seems to be on the tip of the tongues of almost every marketer out there, but really, how does virtual reality play into marketing? Because we know that that is something that obviously is going to be integrated into different ecosystems much more. And I don't know if we necessarily have looked beyond the fact that VR has really been an entertainment type of factor. And what we really should look at it as is it could actually provide a lot of education on different materials that exist within sort of the advertising technology world or the B2B world. So those are things I definitely would be thinking about in terms of what is sort of the 3 to 5 year plan, especially as that integrates a little bit more into the network. And it was fascinating to see how they thought about how video would ultimately segue to virtual reality and allow people to sort of interconnect and share virtual reality experiences with each other, no different than how we shared text status updates with each other early on the network in the mid-2000s. So turning tables for a second, let's shoot from the left coast of San Francisco down to the southeast of Miami, Florida, and talk a little bit about a huge event last week, which of course was the lovely and wonderful Ultra Music Festival, which takes place during the Miami Music Week. I think the fabulous thing about that particular festival, that particular event, and we always have to sort of continue to watch how it grows, is that it really has sort of lived in its own ecosystem for 20 years. I have not seen many brand marketers really want to tap into the power of that particular festival or movement. We hear a lot about Lollapalooza, we hear a lot about Coachella, we hear a lot about Burning Man, yet we don't really hear much about Ultra Music Festival or what happens in Miami. I think if you're on the other side of the pond, if you're coming out of the UK, or you're somewhere on the continent in the Netherlands or Germany, you're definitely talking about it as a destination. And I think a lot of people here in the US are looking at it, if you're basically between the ages of 18 and 24, you're looking at it as a destination. But I think the interesting thing is you haven't had many brand marketers really try to even talk about what they could do at that event, how they tap more into some of the artists that are there. 7-Up obviously is a huge sponsor, but I haven't seen much online activation for the event by many brands. We don't even see much real-time marketing from many brands around that particular week. And it's unfortunate in some respects because I think a lot of that has to do with the organizers themselves really only thinking, how do we really bring this to our audience so that they can actually view us? So obviously you can watch it, the event live streaming on YouTube, but I don't know if there is necessarily as much strategic thinking in terms of how brands can be integrated into the experience, especially for the mass audience that does exist globally that sort of tunes into social media to watch the event. I think that is ripe for disruption in some respects. I think you can have a startup ethos that could actually go into Miami and actually do a lot of different things from how they've been operating. Winter Music Conference barely has a digital presence. That's I wonder how much it can really last without much of a digital presence. They don't really even have a good website, so to speak, or no mobile app to speak of. And Ultra doesn't really have much that ties into that particular area as well. So it'll be interesting to see if that is sort of disrupted by sort of emerging startups that say, hey, how do we go into Miami the week of all of that activity and do sort of a future music conference, invite only, talking really to the top people sort of in music tech, who I think have a lot of new information and probably points of view to deliver, which is really what I think Winter Music Conference stood for many years, but has really fallen by the wayside in terms of educating a lot of the music audience. And I think if you look at one audience in particular that's very cutting edge in terms of how it uses technology to distribute music and promote music, it's definitely the electronic side of the music genre spectrum. And it's weird that one of their biggest events of the year doesn't really reflect that, so to speak. So let's let's rewind even a week prior to that in March and move from the southeast Florida on our map over to Central Texas in Austin, where we had South by Southwest. And what an interesting South by Southwest I think it was this past year. The big story was obviously the debut, so to speak, or the popularization of live streaming mobile application Meerkat, which already is sort of what I would call maybe the Google Plus of live streaming applications. And what I mean by that is a lot of people in tech are using Meerkat. Not a lot of customers or outside of that area are really using it, mainly because of the fact that Meerkat did a wonderful growth hack in some respects, riding the sort of the open API of Twitter to deliver its application and its service to a targeted area of users, targeted segmentation of users. And then what ended up happening, of course, is Twitter announced that they were buying a company called Periscope, which is a similar type of technology to Meerkat, and gave Meerkat 2 hours notice saying they were going to shut down their API and that Meerkat would not be able to use it further to sort of grow their particular application. It's very interesting. If you sort of live by APIs, you can also die by them if you don't necessarily realize that not all networks are going to necessarily let you grow on the back of them. In some respects, we would like to think that is how sort of the democratization of the social web works, but that's not really the case. So we have an application that is really in the music industry, as we would say, here today, gone today. already sort of down in the ranking in terms of the iTunes App Store. Not much talk about it as existed during South by Southwest. It seems like a large segment of the marketer community has already adopted Periscope and seems to be sort of testing that, mainly because of the fact that obviously Twitter acquired it and probably is going to make that part of its overall ecosystem very much like they did with Vine. So as a marketer, you're going to want to use the technology that's more integrated in these sort of popular social networks. And it will be very interesting to see how Meerkat responds from that. If they go the route of Gowalla, which as for all those who might need a little bit of a history lesson, there were two location check-in based applications that existed that debuted at South by Southwest back in 2008, I believe it was. One was Gowalla, the other was Foursquare. Gowalla was actually the first company out of the gate, and of course it no longer exists. It was acquired sort of later for pennies on the dollar by Facebook that sort of used the technology and integrated it into their Places check-in. And of course Foursquare has become more of the dominant standalone app, which of course split into two, Swarm and Foursquare, and which we all sort of know in the marketing community. So it's interesting to see if Meerkat really, maybe sells off its technology to another larger tech firm that's actually looking for sort of a live streaming solution, because it is an interesting application. There is some wonderful things to it that actually lower the barrier to entry. Back in 2008, if you wanted to do live streaming, you had to use either Ustream or Livestream, and you were probably embedding that on a website somewhere for someone to watch, and you had to tie it into a very expensive camera equipment. That's not the case with Meerkat or Periscope. All that's needed is basically access to your smartphone camera, and the app does all the work in terms of live streaming what's taking place. So, sight to be seen. Curious to know your feedback in terms of what you think will be the dominant app, Meerkat or Periscope. Feedback again on Twitter at Disruptive FM. So we will now embark on our journey from Central Texas up to the Northeast Mid-Atlantic region to the Big Apple of New York City, where just recently, at the end of March, Jay-Z, the hip-hop mogul, decided to announce a new music streaming service to take on the likes of Spotify, Pandora, and it looks like iTunes Radio, which obviously was Beats, or integrates Beats into its technology. And that new application service is called Tidal, Tidal, like a tidal wave. Which could actually come back and haunt Jay-Z in the respect that it could be a tidal wave of misery with the launch of this particular product. And the reason I say that is you're looking at a fee of almost $20+ a month to use the service. The interesting fact about that cost analysis is you have to look at a blog post from David Pakman, who was the president of eMusic and digital distributor The Orchard back in the early 2000s. He wrote recently that based on data, the average amount that a person is willing to spend on music is $67 per year. So let's break that down. If it's $67 per year and we have 12 months out of the year, you're looking at probably about between $5 and $6 a month. Yet, it's $9.99 to use Spotify, and now it's going to be $20 to use or subscribe to Tidal. They're not getting the math correct here. I realize that a lot of these artists want to be paid a living wage which makes sense, of course. Having worked in the music industry, it makes sense that you want to actually pay people who are artists a living wage. But I don't know if title's the answer here, because I think what they probably should have done is said, hey, we're going to charge $6 a month. You're going to have access to all of our music. And you can also pick the top 3 artists that you're the biggest fan of, and we'll make sure that we give you access to their entire catalog so you can listen to it, and then be very transparent about the fact that instead of pennies on the dollar that they're paying these artists, that they're actually giving them a good royalty rate. I think that may have actually set up the service for success. The way it sort of debuted at the New York press event, it looked like a bunch of sort of aged 1% entitled music artists crying about the fact that they wish things would get better because of the fact that the MP3 culture disrupted their livelihood as they knew it. And we just know that there's just a lot of things that are not going to sit well with a lot of younger fans who still say, wait a minute, I should actually be paying for streaming music? I don't really know that behavior. Explain that a little bit more to me, please. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this particular episode of the show. I am actually speaking at a number of events for the rest of 2015. You can catch me at the Brand Innovators events all around content marketing. And they have a number of different events scheduled or slated for the rest of the year. But you can find me in Boston, in New York 2 more times this year, Chicago, San Francisco, and London. So for more information there, you can go to brand-innovators.com.
Disruptive FM, the podcast that talks business in the era of the startup economy. The show Fox Business Network, CNBC, or Bloomberg wouldn't dare to replicate. We talk digital trends, social media technology, disruptive innovation, and digital transformation. Broadcasting from Seattle on the World Wide Mobile Web. Listen to us weekly. Download the Spreaker application today at the App Store or on Google Play. And follow us on Twitter at Disruptive FM.
That's this week's episode. You give us 22 minutes. We give you the tech business world at Disruptive FM or at DJGEOFFE on Twitter. See you next time.